Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Advanced Water Heating Initiative's All Stakeholder Meeting. This is our 37th All Stakeholder Meeting for June 18th, 2025. I'm Joe Achunas with New Buildings Institute. Give a little background on this particular meeting, the All Stakeholder Meeting. We meet twice a year now. We were doing quarterly, but since AWHI, as you may have noticed, has lots of meetings, lots of working groups, we're moving this to a twice annual meeting. And we're thinking of it as our big tent meeting where we bring all of our working groups, all of our members together to talk about heat pump water heaters from a bird's eye view. We pack a lot into 90 minutes. We talk about the latest trends in water heating. We talk about how we're going to accelerate a heat pump water heater transformation, and of course give you updates on what the initiative has been doing. Before we get to our agenda, big thanks to all the sponsors of the Advanced Water Heating Initiative. Especially want to shout out to our supporter, Southern California Edison, and other supporters who you can see on your screen. Thank you so much for making this initiative possible. If you're interested in supporting AWHI, my email is there. Just give me a shout out. Just a quick reminder to mute everyone. We're getting a little bit of audio, and thank you. Okay, so we've got a big meeting agenda today. We'll do a quick introduction. And then we are going to pack a lot into these 90 minutes, give a big comprehensive overview of the heat pump water heating market as we see it through the lenses of our many working groups. So we'll start out with our commercial working group. We'll get updates from John Heller from Ecotope, who is going to give us updates on that. I'm going to have to mute some folks who are coming in. So folks, just a reminder, please mute yourself. This is a meeting, so your audio may be turned on. We're getting a little background noise. Thanks so much. So yeah, we'll get to John Heller, who will give us commercial heat pump water heating updates. Then we'll turn it over to Owen Howlett from California Energy Commission, who will give us updates on the residential working group, and he'll be joined with presenters from the Appliance Standards and Awareness Project to talk about the federal water heating standard, from RMI to talk about the air quality agencies, and from Energy Star to give an update on Energy Star. Next, we'll go over to Noah Gabriel from NBI for heat pump water heater connectivity updates. Then Susan Harris from NBI will lead us through our home builder updates, but we'll be joined by Century Communities and K. Hovanian Homes to give us updates on things they're seeing and from their perspectives in the new construction space. After that, we will hear from John Colliner from Slipstream, who give us updates on our hydronic heating working group. Vidisha from NBI will be talking to us about our increasing equitable opportunities in water heating and our equity working group at AWHI. After that, I'll give a quick update on our installers working group, and then we'll close it with our utility working group and a presentation from VGS on their heat pump water heater program. Whew! So we got a lot to chat about today. As usual, we want to make these meetings interactive. We don't do them as webinars, we do them as meetings so that you all can come on camera, raise your hand if you have something to say. We want to know how the water heating market is looking from your perspective, especially through these lenses. So please be interactive. We'll try to make it as interactive as possible, and we want your feedback and your input. Okay, before we launch into the commercial working group, you may have seen last week that we have a very exciting announcement about the greatest day of the year. I'm going to turn it over to Susan Harris to talk to us about Heat Pump Water Heater Day 2025. Susan.
Hi, everyone. I hope you saw the announcement that just went out recently. Heat Pump Water Heater Day will be on Thursday, October 23rd this year. Please save the date, put it on your calendars. It's a full day of education and connection around heat pump water heaters for the residential and commercial markets. It's a lot of fun. We hope you join us in making it fun. We do a lot of social media posts, and this year's theme is Go Go Gadget, Go Go Heat Pump Water Heater. So please give some thought to how you might like to play along and promote Heat Pump Water Heater Day, heat pump water heaters, and have some fun. There's a sign up link here. Please sign up to let us know you're interested. That way you'll get our emails with updates. It'll also be an opportunity for you to get the link to participate in this big day. There are still some sponsorship opportunities available, so also let us know if you're interested in helping with making Heat Pump Water Heater Day a success. And that's it for me. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions. I'll put my email in the chat.
Thanks, Susan. And I just want a big shout out to Reem and A.O. Smith for being a session sponsor and our registration sponsors, respectively. Yeah, let us know if you're interested. Thanks, and join us for Heat Pump Water today. Going to be awesome. All right. Well, without further ado, hopefully John Heller's on the line. We'll turn it over to great some heat pump. And before I give you the floor completely, John, and the commercial working group, we do, as we said, we want to make this interactive. And just to get your wheels turning, what trends are you seeing in the commercial heat pump water heater space? We'll leave some time at the end for folks to let us know, but just want to prime that question. And John, turn it over to you on some of the updates from our perspective. Go ahead.
Great, thanks, Joe. I'm going to do a little good news, bad news presentation here on commercial heat pump water heaters. So first, for the good news is the first U.S. built commercial heat pump water heater is CO2 heat pump water heater is hitting the market. The Lars E-Therm, hooray! Yeah, thank you for the applause signs there. Last week we were down in Sacramento, starting up one at Mercy Housing, transitional housing or supportive housing building, and there's one installed on the East Coast. So the one in California is going to be delivering very detailed performance data that we'll be tracking for the next year at least, and we'll also be demonstrating the load shifting capability of that system with built-in load shifting controls. So really great to see that product come to market and see that it's got fully integrated monitoring and load shift capability built into it. Next slide. So there's some good news and bad news on alignment of standards and specifications for commercially pumped water heaters. The bad news is that we haven't heard much from Energy Star since the Trump administration took over. We're very close to getting alignment across the country through the primary bodies that are setting requirements and standards and specifications for these systems, mostly aligned around the advanced water heating spec from NEA, kind of falling in line with that approach, which looks at the full system efficiency rather than peeling the heat pump off and just looking at the performance of a single widget. It's looking at the full system as the widget, and aligning around test requirements for submittal to, for example, California Code, the Advanced Water Heating Spec, CEE, and the Energy Star. So pretty good alignment there, but been slowed down by the uncertainty surrounding what's going to happen with the Energy Star program. A little more good and bad news. We were launching 2 national demonstration projects of multiple manufacturers installing commercially pumped water heater systems across the country with detailed metering with the intent to validate the performance predictions in the advanced water heating spec qualified products list. That work was getting underway when the rug was not fully pulled out from under them, but everything put on pause, and a big load of uncertainty dropped onto those projects as to whether or not or when they will go forward. The good news associated with that is that several of those demonstration projects are going forward with local utility support in the jurisdictions where they're being installed. And we see that there's the potential for utilities in different parts of the country to kind of step up and step into that same scope of work so that we can have different products that are on the qualified products list installed in different parts of the country, different climates, getting performance data so that we can validate the process that we've developed with the qualified products list and the advanced water heating spec. So hopefully we'll see more of that, and that work will continue with or without the support of the national DOE. And then some wrapping up with some good news. We're plugging along with metering, getting field data from small commercial, non-multifamily installations of heat pump water heaters. This is kind of the class of commercial equipment that's halfway between the residential integrated tanks and the larger central systems, designed more for restaurants, community centers, schools, fire stations, that sort of small commercial application. And we're beginning the funding for this started with the California IOUs. And has expanded to include the Pacific Northwest with support from NEA, adding more sites. So we'll have a pretty decent representation of this type of equipment with good field data within less than a year. We're just starting to get the metering data installed on those systems now, so it'll start rolling in relatively soon, and probably within shorter than a year worth of data, because since these are mostly installed indoors, the seasonal impacts of performance are not as pronounced as they are with the outdoor installations. Noah, did you want to add anything on that one?
John, thanks for doing that. Yeah, I think it's okay for now. Just we'll say that, yeah, we're quickly getting a lot more sites. And as you said, data is flowing in, and we already have some, but we'll definitely be able to share more real data updates after a few months.
I didn't mention that this project is a partnership, is being led with a partnership of Ecotop and NBI.
Indeed, yeah. Thanks, John.
And then I also wanted to note that there's a new CalNext report that just came out, a follow-up to an earlier report that's looking at how do we standardize and optimize load shift controls for these larger multifamily central systems. And initially, we installed load shift controls to shift the energy use out of the peak utility period. But what did not occur in that first demonstration, and what was not totally clear to us at the time, was that the particular rate schedule that building was operating under was heavily dominated by the demand charges during the peak period rather than the energy charges during that peak period. And so when optimizing load shift controls for time of use pricing, it's very important to understand what is the impact of the energy charge, the kilowatt hours, and what is the impact of the demand charge, the kilowatts. And so with additional optimization of controls for those systems, we were able to, there's two different buildings. In one building, we reduced the energy cost of the system by 10% through load shifting, and the other one by 19%. And the total greenhouse gas impacts varied from 8% to 12%. So pretty good performance just by installing load shift controls and controlling the equipment off during those peak periods.
I see Albert's hand is up. Go ahead, Albert.
Yeah, quick question, John. Were the demand charges, is it safe to assume you take demand on top of kilowatt hour charge, and that is that is your motivation to shift?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay,
And so
thanks.
it's not enough. What was happening in the first the first demonstration was we were shifting most of the energy use out of that peak period. But if the system comes back on for only the last 10, 15 minutes of the peak period, you still get the entire demand charge during that period.
Well, that's pretty useful to know.
Yeah. And so what we did instead is, since we had multiple heat pumps there, if it was going to have to come back on to satisfy the thermostat, we'd only bring one of the heat pumps back on during that particular peak period, so you'd only get half of the demand charge impact.
Thank you.
Great. Well, we have a couple extra minutes just for this section, and I wanted to just I see some other great folks here from the commercial water heating world. Does anybody else have any updates from their neck of the woods or anything to share? Questions?
Sorry, I should have mentioned the authors of that CalNext report was AESC, Ask Energy, and Decatope. To give credit where credit is due.
Great. Not to pick on anyone in particular, but Nicole Stacey is a good representative from the East Coast. Anything to say from your neck of the woods?
Yeah, we are still kind of working to secure some funds to supplement some of those DOE projects that John mentioned. And just this week, we got word from NYSERDA. We should have a contract being signed any day now. So yeah, we can
Hooray.
support some more of those magic and scaling up projects in New York.
Fantastic.
And that
Great.
also includes load shift testing that deals with these demand charge issues and deals with the kind of tariff rate structure that we have in New York City, which is very different than I think the tariff rate structures that we see in other municipalities.
Cool. Nicole, anything? Oh yeah, Albert, go ahead.
Well, I just want to, in these times, it's interesting and it's good. It feels good to report that we're continuing to see a high rate of specification and project development for central heat pump water heaters, West Coast, USA, and Canada. And I know that we're going to talk about maybe changes in the LA code and Southern California air quality. But at this moment, things still seem to be chugging along in quite a healthy way.
That's great to know, Albert. Thanks for that perspective. Yeah, very important to keep a finger on the pulse of the market. So that's fantastic to know. Let's keep the conversation going in the chat related to commercial water heating, what you're seeing, and anything else the initiative should have on its radar screen. Please keep that conversation going. We're going to turn it over to our residential working group updates now, and I want to welcome Owen Howlett from the California Energy Commission to come on screen and lead us through our residential working group updates.
Okay, hi everybody. So I want to give a few updates on what we've done in the residential working group over the last quarter. First item you'll see on the slide there is that we released a report on heat pump water heater costs and ways to reduce them. Just to recap, the incredible importance, the pivotal importance of cost for the residential heat pump water heater market. Everything we do to try to increase the volume of the market depends on controlling those costs and taking opportunities to avoid high cost projects and bring the cost down in general across the board. If you read that report, which I really encourage you to do, it will remind you of the many, many different sources of cost in these residential projects and the opportunities to reduce those, especially from a regulatory point of view. Everything we do in regulations depends on being able to cost justify the requirements. So this is absolutely critical. The good news actually in that report, I thought I saw that some of the costs had actually come down since the last time I looked at them in detail. So that looks pretty hopeful to me. Second, the second graphic on the slide there, we released a fact sheet showing CO2 savings for heat pump water heaters when switching from a gas water heater. It's around 1 ton per year, 2,000 pounds of CO2 per year. We are working on expanding that research, and we'll release another fact sheet looking at all types of water heaters, as well as other pollutants in addition to CO2. And we're hoping to release that later this year in September. Third little icon there, we are launching a podcast or video cast with in-depth conversations with manufacturers about their products. So if you enjoy watching Matt Risinger videos or watching This Old House, you will enjoy watching Joe do something similar with the manufacturers who we work with. Very realistically, that graphic shows that you could be sitting watching a horse race in Hawaii, sipping a beer and enjoying a podcast about heat pump water heaters. I think that's something that we all would love to experience. So look forward to that. Hoping to start that in July. And then finally, we're having the Heat Pump Water Heater Day. That's Joe already mentioned that. Just give in to the absurdity of Heat Pump Water Heater Day. You'll be glad that you did. So next slide. We'd like to give an update on federal water heating standard. DOE updated the standard last year, and that now essentially requires heat pump water heaters instead of electric resistance water heaters for any installation over 35 gallons. We do have a new administration in town, you may have noticed, and so we wanted to check in on the status of that standard. And here with us to do that is Joanna Mauer from the Appliance Standards and Awareness Project, ASAP. Joanna is the Deputy Director of ASAP, and she leads ASAP's technical advocacy in US DOE rulemakings for efficiency standards for residential appliances and commercial and industrial equipment. She's been with ASAP since 2010. Joanna, do you want to fill us in on the latest?
Yeah, thanks. So just quickly, in April, Congress passed a Congressional Review Act resolution, and that CRA is undoing the standards for gas tankless water heaters that DOE finalized late last year. President Trump subsequently signed that Congressional Review Act resolution into law. So that undid the standards for gas tankless water heaters. It does not affect the standards for electric storage or gas storage water heaters. In May, DOE published 17 proposals to repeal existing efficiency standards for a range of products. In some cases where Congress had established initial standards for a product, the proposal would revert to those older statutory standards. In other cases, the proposals would completely eliminate standards for a product in the case where there are no statutory standards. Water heaters are not included in that list of 17 proposals. However, we think it's likely that we'll see additional similar notices from DOE. We don't know what additional products they might go after or when we might see something. And our view is that if DOE does attempt to repeal the water heater standards, that would be a clear violation of the anti-backsliding provision, which says that DOE cannot weaken an existing efficiency standard.
Thanks, Joanna. I guess we'll stop here just for a second. If anyone has any questions for Joanna, we know the federal standard is a big subject. Yeah, Amy, go ahead.
I have questions on whether or not there's been any legal action and lawsuits against these actions.
Yeah, not yet, because at this point, their proposals, we expect that if DOE does finalize these proposals, that there will be legal action.
Carl, I see your hand up.
Yeah, just a quick question. We saw that the tariff steel increase is assigned to appliances, but as a manufacturer of heat pump water heaters, we don't have a clear understanding if the steel tariff increase is going to impact heat pump water heaters. Joanne, do you have any indication? Have you heard anything about that for water heating?
I have not. I was under the impression, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question though.
Okay.
Thanks for that, Carl. Okay, well, we'll keep in close touch. Thanks, Joanna, so much for being on. And we'll keep in close touch on the standards, as that is huge for heat pump water heater adoption. Oh, and over to you.
Yep, thank you. So now we're going to check in on another big driver of heat pump water heater adoption, which is Air Quality Agency limits to NOx pollution. And this is specifically in California. Last month, we saw that the South Coast Air Quality Management Board voted against staff recommendations for a phase-in of zero NOx appliances. This is part of a wider tapestry of potential regulatory improvements in California, where we have both state regulations in play via the Air Resources Board's zero emission appliance standards. And then we've also got air quality management districts potentially implementing regional standards. And this is in addition to other appliance standards that would apply statewide. So there's a very complex tapestry of what's happening in California. A lot of the chess pieces are moving with great regularity. And here to talk with us about some perspective on that is Jed Holtzman. Jed's a senior associate at RMI, and he's been working closely with air quality agencies, especially in California, to explore the zero NOx heating equipment standard. Jed.
Thanks, Owen, and AWHI for continuing these really important
Oh,
meetings.
you're very quiet, Jed.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
It's a little bit low.
That's better.
Okay. I'm gonna have to here. Hold on. Is this any better?
Yep.
Okay, sorry about that. I was trying to avoid potential construction noise in the background. Thanks, Owen. Thanks, AWHI, for continuing these really important meetings. As Owen said, the air agencies around California have been looking at these sources, specifically space and water heating in residential and commercial buildings, largely because of essentially the scale of the piece of the pie that they represent when the agencies are looking at these emissions. As an example, in the South Coast Air Quality Management District, combustion from residential and commercial buildings releases about 7 times more NOx than power plants. And so as the agency is looking towards very steep emissions reduction obligations because of its extreme non-attainment with federal air quality standards, they have moved to these sources, as you have heard at other agencies. So really quickly, kind of an update on the saga of this rule since we last spoke about it last fall. As of last fall, you were looking at a 2029 zero NOx compliance date for HVAC up to 2 million BTUs per hour and water heating up to 75,000 BTUs per hour. Reminder that larger water heaters, including tankless, were covered in Rule 1146.2 amendments adopted last summer at the agency. And there were later compliance dates proposed for mobile homes and high altitude installs, a couple other, small provisions like that. Along the way, larger furnaces were taken out, causing the rule to sort of stop at 175,000 BTU per hour on HVAC, where the current rule ended, and similar to where the BACMUD rules, the Bay Area Air Quality Management District rules, were covering as well. Existing mobile homes were taken out because of master metering issues and sort of small market issues, with promising progress on new mobile homes. And then some months back, the agency moved to a different design approach entirely, an alternative compliance model that manufacturers would opt into instead of those 2029 dates, which offered sales targets with mitigation fees. So these were not sales requirements, but rather targets with a mitigation fee mechanism, which looked like a fee of $50 on every polluting water heater sold, $100 on every NOx emitting furnace sold, with a separate mitigation fee for units sold over the sales target. And that would have been $250 per water heater over the target and $500 per furnace over the target. So that was on the table on the streets for about 4 or 5 months before the adoption vote on June 6th. Unfortunately, I think with so many different versions of the rule, different folks had different ideas out in the public of what the rule was and wasn't. Certainly, I think opposition comments in the weeks leading up to the hearing and on the day of seemed potentially misinformed in terms of the absolute latest version of the rule, and just in terms of sort of comments around concerns around taking away consumer choice, which the final version of the rule was fairly laissez-faire about. I guess lastly would just encourage electric service providers and equipment manufacturers to engage with these processes early and often as they are progressing. I think there were comments around sort of grid capacity, but I think we didn't have the regional distribution utility there to sort of give the facts to the public, and I think it would be useful in these processes to have sort of the experts on the equipment, which is the manufacturers, as well as the experts on the grid to engage. And I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Jed, just to kind of expand on that a little bit, would it be fair to characterize those proposed regulations as being a little bit like the CAFE standards for vehicles, where there's kind of a fleet performance standard, and in the manufacturers essentially pay a fee if the performance of their fleet is not up to an increasingly high standard? That's roughly how it works, right?
Yes, I think the final version, whether it was CAFE or the sort of ZEV, the statewide ZEV rules that have been in the news lately, sort of looking at that same sort of model. The South Coast version didn't have credits or credit trading, but I think looking at a similar approach in terms of those, yes.
Right, thanks. And just to emphasize the importance of that, the South Coast Air Quality Management District is almost half of California, and the Bay Area Air Quality Management District is almost the other half of California. So these are pretty impactful regulations if and when they do eventually go through. So thanks for the update. And then, so lastly, from the residential side, you will have heard that Energy Star has been in the news, and we figured you might appreciate an update on that and some insight into what exactly is happening. So here to give us that update is Nate Jutras, Energy Star's product manager for water heating. Nate.
Yeah, so I'm not going to give any kind of declarative update. I'm sure that you all would like some concrete news, but I think it's helpful to know that many of my colleagues and I are still here. We did lose a few folks. If you worked with Peter Banwell, he's one of those who recently retired. But I'm continuing to work, and many of my colleagues are continuing to work with utilities, and the products are still being certified. And we don't have any kind of hard date as to when that could change, and I'm not expecting it to. There's thankfully been a lot of strong support from stakeholders, such as many of those folks on here. So we're here. I know my colleague Abby is on the line as well, or at least I saw her earlier in the call. Feel free to reach out to us. We are engaged. I know I'm engaged in trainings with manufacturers, and so there's obviously lots of work to be done. And Joe and I have and Vidisha have been coordinating and figuring out how we can work. We have fewer resources. Obviously, we don't have luxury of ICF supporting us at the moment, and Paul Campbell. Maybe that'll change in the future, but yeah. So contrary to what some folks have heard, Energy Star is still, certifying products, and we look forward to working with you going forward.
Great, and I think we're getting a question answer in the chat. Is there's a question from Ria. Is Energy Star still being certified to the current standards?
Yeah,
And-
the standards haven't changed. You know, I think as John Clark alluded to, there's some development of new standards. That work has slowed or stopped in some cases. But the existing standards, there's no rollback of Energy Star criteria. If that's the question, I'm not quite sure.
I think so. Yeah. Great. Well, thank you, Nate. Thanks so much for the update, and yeah, we really appreciate it, and look forward to continuing to collaborate with Energy Star in this vital work. Thanks so much. All right, and thank you to Owen as well for leading us through the residential section. Please, as usual, continue that conversation in the chat. I see some other chats going on, so please converse there on all things residential related. Now I'll turn it over for our connectivity working group for an update from Noah Gabriel. Noah,
awesome. Thanks, Joe. I'll take control here real quick. Yeah, I'll also be giving a quarterly update, some exciting things happening in our connectivity working group where we nerd out on all things heat pump water heater load shifting. So yeah, we heard from Daniela Uruguay from Energy Solutions, an awesome talk about Energy Solutions study in North Carolina, looking at the efficacy of heat pump water heater load shifting. They did 24 240 volt heat pump water heater installations using UCM modules for the load shifting. And just a little sneak peek of some of the results here. You can clearly see some good results. A lot of load shifted away from peak utility periods. I believe this was for Duke Energy, but if you want to check out the full report or look at Daniela's presentation, that's on the AWHI YouTube page. We also heard from Brian Wu Shem on demonstrating simple price-responsive controls for central heat and water heaters. The controls for load shifting can get super complicated sometimes, so Brian gave a great talk on how to simplify those with still getting some great results. So basically talking about LVNL's easy shift algorithm. And again, some great results here, shifting away from baseline using the easy shift algorithm. And you can see some of the results here from Brian Wushem's presentation and study. And this was done, I believe, on a CO2 heat pump water heater at a multifamily installation in San Francisco. That's where the testing was happening. And again, also on AWHI's YouTube if you want to check out Brian's full presentation. And last but certainly not least, we had a great double presentation at one of our working groups where we heard from SDG&E about a VPP or virtual power plant study they did. Unfortunately, the water heaters involved, which were electric resistance, were having trouble connecting, so they were ultimately excluded from that study, but still a great look at this VPP in action with battery and solar. And on that same section, we also had Aquanta come on, who is a water heater controller manufacturer. And just some example photos here of what they were doing, and then also some of the results they were seeing from real world testing. And just in terms of some industry updates, Joe has mentioned this already, but GE's new heat pump water heater is set to release soon. It's exciting that it'll have an extra high set point. And as we know, the higher the set point, the more thermal storage capacity a heat pump water heater will have. And therefore, it'll be more easily able to shed or curtail energy use for a long period and really shift all the energy use away from grid peak periods. And then CTA 2045 version C has also been launched for development back in January. And ideally, that'll have some good new features. CTA 2045 version B introduced the advanced loadup command, or advanced loadup signal rather, which has been really pivotal for getting more load shifting capacity out of heat pump water heaters. So hopefully version C will have some cool new developments too. So if anyone who is on this call has any updates on CTA 2045C, they're welcome to come on and chat about it. And if not, we can definitely follow up in a future session. But yeah, definitely encourage folks to follow along with that development. And that is all from me on connectivity. Eric Olson, you want to jump in quick?
Yeah, I'm on the CTA 2045 revision committee, so that work is ongoing, but I would appreciate if anybody has ideas or suggestions for, I'd call them enhancements or clarifications. I encourage you to please reach out to me via email, and I'll put my email in the chat.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric. And Joe, I'll pass it back to you.
Great. Thanks, Noah. Thanks, Eric. Really appreciate the updates on connectivity working group. Great. Well, let's turn it over to Susan Harris with our home builder working group updates. And we've got a couple of home builders here on the call as well. Go ahead, Susan.
Great. Thank you, Joe. Just a little bit about AWHI's Home Builders Action Council, also known as HBAC. The group has been convening since 2022. It gives us an opportunity to hear from the home builders on their experience with heat pump water heaters, if there are any barriers or where there are some really great things happening so that we can all benefit from that information. It also provides us an opportunity to share information on policy, technology, and installation, and facilitate connections with market actors. It's a great opportunity for our home builders to come together and work towards a greater good, really. And I'm happy to say that we have a couple members of our group with us today to talk with you. First, we have Melissa Foley with Century Communities, and then next we'll have Dean Potter with K. Hovnanian Homes. And Melissa, would you like to join us?
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon. So, as a home builder, we were definitely faced with the increasing requirements for the 2021 IEC that was going into effect this year. Obviously, that's been pushed off. But in that process, we started to kind of go through all of our divisions. We have 42 divisions throughout the U.S., and we wanted to really kind of see where everyone was at and kind of help them put together more of a performance-based program going forward. With working with our energy raters, we really wanted to start focusing on HVAC and water heaters. When we went and looked at what everybody was using on the water heater side, we were definitely surprised that we didn't have our divisions following all of our specifications. So I kind of put a quick dashboard up here, just kind of showing what we found in the process. Because at this point, knowing that we wanted to focus on HVAC and water heaters, we wanted to put the category out for review. But when doing that, you've really got to narrow down your focus and understand where everybody's at. And so what we found was our regional and division spec was all over the place. This was due to trade partner recommendations, maybe possibly the subdivision requirements, local incentives, and code requirements. We also found that as much as certain parts of our business was focused on electric, we had at least 25% of our divisions still using gas, and only 6% of them were using the heat pump water heater. And so that kind of put us in a little bit of a different. We also, and I didn't put it on here, good mix on the tank versus tankless. And so a lot of that became kind of hard to see how we could do this with one manufacturer or 1 to 2, maybe 3 at the most. But when we also put the RFP out for review, we found that the manufacturers were kind of, and I can say this because I came from the manufacturing side in my past life, a little bit of a old school approach. So a couple of the major brands really wanted to rely on local distribution to dictate the pricing. And it didn't allow for us to really facilitate that not to exceed or that visibility to that itemized pricing that we were getting into the market. So that was a little bit of a disappointment as we did this. And then, of course, we looked at, the usage was based more on, obviously the incentives. And so with the cost of going to Energy Star 3.2 or even higher, we saw handful, 50% of our divisions that were doing Energy Star had backed away from the program because of the ongoing cost or the additional costs going forward. So all of that was part of our RFP and what we're considering going forward. Right now, we're working on line of sight to that product and pricing through the channel or even a direct purchase. Obviously, we'll have some areas of concern. That could be our trade partner alliances with the different brands, and then even our internal limitations on how to facilitate a direct purchase if we were to go down that direction. As we focus on the second half of the year, we're really going to be focused on the regional specifications. Can we kind of lump them into one focus versus all these one-to-many? And then we're going to be doing our due diligence and working with our divisions. But that's just a quick overview of what we've been doing on the water heater side. Thanks, Susan.
Thank you, Melissa, for sharing. It's greatly appreciated. We really like hearing about your experience. And does anybody have any questions before we move on? All right, if you think of any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. And with that, I'll hand the microphone over to Dean. Dean, can you talk?
Yep.
Thank you.
I can. Good morning, everybody. Dean Potter with K. Hovnanian Homes. For those that don't know, we are a national public builder, build it coast to coast to roughly 7,000 homes a year. And right now we're using somewhere between 500 and 1,000 homes per year with hot water heat pumps. And I predicate that with, because what I'm going to talk about might make it sound like I'm anti hot water heat pumps, which is anything but the truth. But what I am, and I spent my career at this, is to make sure that we don't have unintended consequences that result in damage or things that go wrong in our houses. And over the years, there's been many products that everybody said, well, I've never had a problem. I've never had a problem. And then all of a sudden something came up and you said, how did we possibly miss that? And what's going on? I provided a document, and Susan, I'm not sure if you provided the entire document to Penny or just put this up here as a speaking point. But if you don't have this article and you're interested in hot water heat pumps, I would strongly urge you to read it. It comes from two perspectives. One is potential risk and damage to our homes, and the other one is performance of the hot water heat pumps in the environment that we install them in our homes. The high risk of moisture-related issues, which is where our big concerns are, came from Dr. Joe Steebrook. And as Joe says to me many times, my phone doesn't ring until there's problems, and my phone's ringing. I don't have the time to go into the details on that, but I would urge folks to read this and make sure that you understand the potential impact it has. And while I'm only speaking about new construction, as I was thinking about listening to the conversation about the replacement market and seeing some pictures, maybe it's even a greater concern in those markets. What's happened in the last code cycle, we just literally last week finished the hot water and HVAC subcommittee group for the 2027 code, which I've served on 4 of these now. We just finished our work last week. There were 2 proposals, one made by Gary Klein, I'm sure many of you know Gary, and the other one by Shilper from 2050 Partners. They were really essentially the same thing in that they were saying, if you do not install a hot water heat pump, considering the energy source and the need for that, they will not perform at the level that they're certified to. And therefore, their proposal was going to say, without certification that was installed, quote, correctly, they wanted to derate by 50% the credit you got in the energy code. Well, nobody really wanted that. Their other proposal was to put installation instructions for hot water heat pumps directly into the code. Well, I can tell you, we constantly fight the notion of introducing installation instructions into the code. Can you imagine if every manufacturer started having their installation instructions in the code? Not a good thing. It's complicated enough as it is. And at the same time, the proposal that they had for a typical home builder was complicated. It requires calculations on how many cubic feet you need and a lot of stuff that had to be done. So in the end, and there are several people on this call, I believe, we got the manufacturers to know that this conversation was going on, and we got AHRI involved as well. And literally in the last meeting, Gary Klein and Shilpa both rescinded their proposals to go into the code with the commitment from the industry that they will look at at a standard, an ASHRAE standard or something similar to that, that can then be pointed to in the code in the future as to how these products are to be installed, and then get the appropriate energy efficiency credit for them. In the meantime, the next 3 years, we're going to keep on installing these products. And so there's a real need for everybody on this call that has an interest in this to really don't dismiss it, really look into it, understand it, and make sure that it gets educated. Because I can tell you, I installed my first HVAC heating system in 1972. And to this day, you have people say, oh, I heard those things don't work. I don't want to put them in my house. You got an opportunity to get in front of this here and this, but you get one shot at it. And if it starts to get a bad reputation, it will take you years, if not decades, to recover from it if you get a bad reputation for that. So with that, if you have any questions or thing you want to ask me, I'm happy to answer them.
Joe, go ahead.
Dean, thanks for that. It was super. I really appreciated that, forthright candor that you shared. Just wondering, in your experience with a lot of heat pump water unit installations, have you seen issues that have kind of been raised here on indoor condensation, and what things have you seen, and what do you recommend folks look out for?
So I'm going to give you two answers to that, Joe, one that you asked and one that you didn't. So far, the majority of our installations have been in garages in relatively moderate climates, typically dry, California being the #1 location we put them in. So I haven't had the experience of putting them in, let's say, Hilton Head, South Carolina, in a garage, in a HVAC closet in the middle of the house. Haven't done that. Or I know one of the examples that Joe put in his paper, which is, if you have the whole thing, you'll see it, is in Richmond, Virginia, for instance. So I can't tell you that we've had that, but I can tell you that there was a product in the 1990s called EIFS that we had been installing as an industry in the US for over 15 years, and people said they'd never had a problem for it until they started looking for it. And then the product was banned in the US because it was so dramatically bad. Right? So just because we haven't had a problem doesn't mean that there isn't a problem that's evolving. The other thing is the efficiency rating. This is where Gary was going on. People, so you say to people, well, you're installing hot water, we have no problems. Do they really know, do their customers know that their system may not be operating even close to the efficiency rating that was promised to them, because, you read Joe's article, there's not enough energy in the space it was installed for the system to work the way it was designed to be to operate. That's the big deal. If I don't have enough heat to extract to heat the water in that space, the efficiency of the system will go down. And so that's, again, something, until all of a sudden somebody figures that out, and then here comes the class action lawsuit saying they promised this stuff would do it and it doesn't. So again, that's why it's important to see that people are fully educated. And I really do think the manufacturers are going to have to take the lead here, possibly through HR, and make sure that the plumbers are educated, the builders are educated, the code officials are educated, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you for that. And then I saw Brian Shanks and Albert Rooks raise your hand for a moment. If you still have a question, please let me know, or perhaps the question was answered while you raise your hand.
Yeah, Brian Shanks. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Brian Shanks, Beezer Homes. I really want to parrot a lot of what Dean said and then really add a little bit more context. We've been installing heat pump water heaters for years in some different climate areas, mostly in Florida is where we started, which is certainly a much more humid climate, not a dry climate for sure, and have not experienced. But again, we've been installing them in garages. So we have ample and adequate free venting area. So perhaps that's really the key here. But the challenge that I think Dean and I face, really all home builders face, is the action that's being taken without it being introspective. And ultimately, I think what I'm trying to say there is, there's probably good reason to ring the bell. We think certainly Gary Klein and Joe Stiebrook are very much well respected in the space and value their opinions, but to just automatically make these changes, I think it's dramatic. And that's where we want the industry to come together to help us all come to the right solution. If the efficiency needs to be derated because the system isn't performing correctly, I think everyone would agree to that. It's just the methodology in which they're trying to. So again, it's being a part of the conversation is what Dean and myself were all asking for is, let's make a collective determination, which comes from all sides of the aisle. And I think that was just the additional color I wanted to add. We have not experienced these problems yet, but again, it's maybe something that's waiting around the corner for us.
Well said, Brian. Well said.
Yeah, thank you for adding that, Brian. And Albert, do you still have a question? Would you like to unmute?
And I wanted to thank Dean for the information. I'm actually on the Washington State Energy Code Technical Advisory Group, and so the energy credits are something that that we're talking about, and that work is just coming up. So really useful information. Dean, I was just curious if there was actual data behind the 50% derate based on air source. That's a really variable condition, and it seems like a crude hammer to apply.
And I would defer that answer to Gary Klein. And if you don't know Gary, he's more than happy to talk to people. He talks about this incessantly. There are calculations behind it. It is based on science, not on opinion, but you got to dig down into the details. And one thing I try not to do is say I'm the expert on this. I know people that are experts, but I'm not the expert on it. So I'm not the one to answer that question, but I would directly go to Gary because he's been working on this for multiple years. And I knew he was going to bring this forward in the code hearings. I just didn't know how he was going to do it. And as I said earlier, my biggest pushback was I don't want installation instructions in the building code, in the energy code, or any other code. I want, I believe for good reasons. So
yeah, understood. Being working on code language right now, I agree.
So I would reach out to Gary or Joe Stebro. Gary on the particular calculations, Joe more on the on the moisture related concerns he's getting phone calls on, but either one of them.
Yeah. I also wonder if anyone's done any studies on this recently. I would be curious to see any results on studies.
So Gary will tell you his proposal comes from studies. And of course, Gary's a Californian and has been in that market for many years. So he will tell you he's got studies and information based on that. But once again, I defer that. I mean, this paper you have up in here is about 10 pages long. If you had a chance to read through that, you will get a better insight into this subject for sure.
Yeah, thank you. And Kelly, did you want to ask your question?
Maybe not necessarily a question. I just think I echo the consideration and the thought that has to go into installation. I don't think it should be in the code necessarily for individual OEMs instructions. I agree with that. I think there's got to be just more thought about the application and how what the placement is, if it's an integrated heat pump over tank module. I do want to put a pitch in though that they're not just Daikin, but many other manufacturers are considering what it looks like to have the split type water heating technology in new construction. Maybe there's some advantages, disadvantages, but what we do see for the most part is that it's really difficult to misapply because it doesn't have any of the same situations for moisture and space constraints on the tank on the indoor. And I just think that's another category that this group needs to be reminded of because it's emerging, and I think it's going to come along as well.
All right, thank you for that. And then Brian, was there something else you'd like to add to the conversation?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think that most of Gary's findings on the efficiency degradation came from maybe even a NEA-sponsored study. I think Ben Larson might have collaborated on the incredible shrinking room I think that's where most of those efficiency calculations came from for those that are interested.
Okay, good to know. Thank you for that. Dean, thank you so much for sharing with us on this topic, a very important
Glad to. Thanks.
paper to consider. So just really quickly to wrap up, the Home Builders Action Council meets regularly. Paul Campbell from ICF joins me and other home builders. We have a mix of meetings. Sometimes we just focus on the home builders in conversation about what's happening at the current time. Then we also have meetings where we have special presenters join us. And then we also connect with the home builders one-on-one. If you have a topic that you think it would be good to share with home builders, please reach out to me by email. If you are a home builder or you know a home builder and you are not yet joining us, please reach out to me and join us for these information meetings and conversations. Thank you. And back to you, Joe.
Thanks so much, Susan. Thanks, Dean, and everyone for that great conversation. Lots there and some really important stuff. I think we identified a gap. We need some more research on the effects of heat pump water heaters on moisture and condensate in homes, especially in the building envelope. But we are doing pretty good on time, maybe a couple minutes over. I want to, without further ado, turn us over to John Colliner from Slipstream, who's going to give us an update on our AWHI Hydronics working group. So John, thanks for being here, and over to you.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, this is a super quick update. So this group is relatively new. It was formed with the intention to house understanding on air-to-water heat pumps and bring together folks who knew about them so that we could start getting some work done. There was a little bit of an anticipation of the Energy Star heat pump boiler standard that is likely on ice for the moment, but AWHI standard, AHRI standard 1700 is moving forward for quantifying efficiencies of air-to-water heat pumps. We've so far had, I think we've had 5 meetings, including our initial planning meeting. We had a good introduction from Edward Louie at PNNL and Hugh Henderson on air-to-water heat pumps and good design practices. We had a discussion from GridWorks Consulting and Appropriate Designs on thermal storage with air-to-water heat pumps. We had Harvest Thermal come and present on their Combi high temperature system that has storage and load shifting capabilities. And then our recent meeting, VEIC, NEEP, and TRC on behalf of NYSERDA presented on programs and how air-to-water heat pumps were performing in programs, what the program structures were up in the Northeast. Our next meeting on July 11th, we have just signed up Jonathan Woolley from Eris Hydronics to talk about their, primarily their multifamily solution, but he'll probably go into a variety of things that he's been working on, especially with LBNL. So we are looking forward to that. If you're interested in air-to-water heat pumps, email those emails at the bottom right, and we can get you signed up for the group. Thanks.
Questions for John or any other points folks want to bring up on hydronic heat working group? John, since you were so speedy, do you want to at all give an update on the field study you're leading on this topic?
Given that we have time. So currently we're leading a field study with Focus on Energy on installing some of these units in Wisconsin. We have an LG unit in a retrofit single family site, Enertech unit in a single family site, an Enertech unit, 2 Enertech units in a multifamily site, and we are going to be looking at a new construction site in the very north end of Wisconsin with a Chiltrix unit.
Great, thanks so much, John. Really appreciate it. Lots to come on this. Let us know if you're interested in joining this group. Just put a message in the chat. But thanks so much, John, for your leadership on this. Really appreciate it. Okay, over now to our equity working group update. I'll turn it over to Vidisha, who helps lead this along with Deepti Dutt from NEEP.
Thank you, Joe. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I'll continue the train of updates for the equity working group. Joe, could you please move to the next slide? Thank you. This group started sometime last year in January, and then we reconvened in around like mid of 2024 again. In my last meeting, I do remember that I might have mentioned that we survived the storm. It was like the uncertain situation. I would like to change my update a little bit. I think we have thrived the uncertain situation with almost over 80 plus members in this working group, going good, going strong. And people are more than passionate about this topic. They really want to work in the space. And I'm so glad that we still have people coming to these working group meetings and contributing their knowledge and doing a lot of transfer of like knowledges and like what projects they're working on, what's new in the space, what is something that we should like to focus on. And apparently I have been a little obsessed with the word split technology here. So our working group meetings, presentations focused on split heat pump water heaters coming to the market this year, which might make a lot of difference to multifamily units. And when we say multifamily units, we really talk about like renters and owners. So we then had a discussion on like how to have split incentives debate solved, like what really works. How can we make sure that it's not just one person who's paying and someone else is benefiting, but the benefits are equitably balanced in the seesaw. So those were some of the really interesting, insightful presentations that we have had at this group. I want to give a big shout out to my co-lead, Deepti Dutt from NEEP, who came up with this brilliant idea of splitting the meetings. So there's like alternate months, we have a power check-in meeting where we convene to discuss like if there is something new, or of any topic of like point of interest for the group that should focus on. It's a 30-minute discussion, and alternate months we have a spotlight presentation so that we could like whenever we can reconvene, we always have something new to talk about. We always have some new focus areas, and then we move forward in the space. And I think when I say equity, in my own personal dictionary, equity has a lot of synonyms, and one would be collaboration. You can work for equity. You could be like in any corner of the world and still work together, having the same motive. And on that front, I would like to invite Montre Moore from Midwest BDC, who has also been doing a lot of work on the equity front, and talk something about his perspectives on the equity working group, as well as an educational toolkit that we hope to have this year for everyone, so that they can understand like how to move forward in these uncertain times with the word equity and the work in the space. Montre, would you please come forward? In case you're on mute. Hey, Montre, are you able to hear me? You're not audible. I'm so sorry.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly fine.
So sorry about that. We should be used to these technical issues by now. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is such an amazing space. And Vidisha, thank you so very much for sharing it with myself. Again, my name is Montre Moore. I am the Membership and Engagement Director for the Midwest Building Decarbonization Coalition. Big, huge, lofty name with a big, huge, lofty goal, and that is to decarbonize the building sector by 2050. How do we do that? By building partnerships, by removing silos, and really stepping into relationships and making sense of all this very difficult work that we're doing. So first and foremost, thank you all for all your efforts in the space. So yes, the Midwest BDC, as our short title, we also have a equity working group. We've framed our organization's footprint and foundation in equity, really ensuring that all, not some, are part of this transition. And so we're really excited to be working in the space with Vidisha, really better understanding, again, how do we move beyond tag words like equity, if we're just being honest, and how do we really make sure that this work makes sense to everybody on the local level, and how are we giving folks not only information, but how are we providing tools that can really move this work forward? We know and understand that's the only way we're truly going to be able to make any of our goals, our dreams, our aspirations of decarb and really, again, making our work tangible on a massive scale really happening. And so again, we see this opportunity as a beacon of launching across not only the Midwest, but across the country, especially understanding that, yes, we have several barriers in front of us right now. But again, this is an opportunity to remove silos, to better understand how do we make our coalitions and our work stronger than ever, and how do we continue, again, to move our work forward and make it lasting for our children and our children's children, because at the heart of it, we know and understand how important this work is. And again, I thank you for your time, and I thank you for sharing your space with me. And I look forward to some great information coming up from our collaborative working group. If you don't know anything about Midwest BDC, I will drop our website in the chat just so you can come become a little bit more familiar with our work, who we do it with, and how we do it, and also so you can stay tuned for some amazing collaborations coming in the future. So thank you so much again.
Thank you so much, Montre. Yes, as Montre discussed, we would be coming up with this educational toolkit. We really hope and believe that this would be useful for people to move forward with their projects that has a certain scope for equitable energy access. So keeping our fingers crossed, hopefully by the end of the year, we should have this toolkit for everyone. And on that note, I think I have a question, actually. I'll drop it in the chat. But yes, if you'd like to join this group, you can reach out to me. If you have any suggestions, or if there is any topic, or you feel there is a particular area that we should focus on as an equity working group, you can always let me know. Our next meeting is on July 30th. As of now, we are planning to have a quick power check-in meeting, but in case we come across something interesting, we would definitely have a 1-hour spotlight discussion. And if you like to know more about like what this discussion looked like, or what are the other areas of interest that we are going to explore, you can always loop into AWHI playlist and check the recordings and have all the presentation at your hand. That will be all from my side. And yes, do stay tuned for the question in the chat. But if you have any other questions, you can let me know. Thanks, Joe.
Okay, we're sending an interactive poll question in the chat. Thanks to Vidisha. If your water heater had to submit an equitable report card, what would it honestly say? Heat pump water heater, never heard of it? Is that even available in my neighborhood? Hashtag infogap. My tank sheds tears over the upfront cost. Efficiency dreams denied. Financially denied. Where are the local pros to install me? I can't find skilled help near me. Or my human stress is about the bill. Can someone just ease this energy burden? Little fun poll for y'all. Choose your vote, and then we'll share that out afterwards. Thank you for that. Oh, I may have just sent that to Vidisha. We're working on polls here. Sorry. I'll get that going in just a second. That'll be coming in just 1 second. Let me give the installers working group update, and then I'll get our poll going. Sorry for the technical difficulties there. Okay. So just want to give an update on our installers working group. We formed this group last year, about a year old for installers, and it's a small but mighty group. We're now up to 14 kind of actively engaged installers from around the U.S. We would, in this working group, we tried to kind of pick out, especially leading heat pump water heater installers, and find out what, through free form conversation, find out what they're seeing and what they what their issues are, what their barriers are. So I have some really good meetings. We do bi-monthly meetings with this group. And some of our latest updates from our installer working group is that we had a big discussion on potential code adjustments to how to treat condensate and pressure relief valves. Is there any way that, when you have to, in the rare conditions installers were saying where it's very complicated to install a condensate line, could that be combined with the pressure relief valve line? And so we formulated a couple of potential code ideas, and we'll be working, especially with the New Buildings Institute code team, on these ideas. So you can, that's a live link there on your screen. You can check that out. Another big question came up in our working group in May that we're going to focus on in July. What to do with the heat pump water heater at the end of life? As we know that they, most, if not all, heat pump water heaters have higher GWP refrigerant in them. How do we dispose of them and not release that refrigerant into the atmosphere? The installers brought this up as an issue they're seeing and no best practices. So we're going to dive into that in July. If you have any thoughts related to that, please let me know in the chat or raise your hand. But that has come up from the installers. So we'll report back on that working group session. And then I just wanted to highlight that as part of the Heat Pump Water Heater Day week, we are going to be doing a live in-person and virtual installer training on October 21st with PG&E. We're going to be filming installations of multiple types of heat pump water heaters, multiple brands and types. And we're going to be, there'll be installers sharing their experience and doing kind of a step-by-step interactive educational session. So that'll be really great. We'll be sending lots more information on that in the coming weeks. Great. Well, before I look in the chat here, I just wanted to open the floor for discussions. Are you seeing any trends with heat pump water heater installers? Are you seeing any champion installers that you want to let us know about, or folks that are getting into the space? What challenges are you hearing from installers? And are there any HVAC installers specializing in heat pump water heaters? That's a space that we're very curious about that you've come across. So I'll leave some awkward silence and check the chat here. But please feel free to raise your hand if you have anything to share on heat pump water heater installers with the group. Yeah, Lucy, we can share a list of installers. I'll probably just share it with folks if they send me an email. So go ahead and, oops, sorry, I'll put my email in the chat. Great, thanks, John. Can send a couple of installers. Yeah, we'd love more Midwest representation. It'd be fantastic. John, Neil, I see your comment in the chat. Do you want to come on mic and just say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we're dealing with this in multifamily installs and talking individually with manufacturers to see if there are alternatives for T&P management. And one of the ideas we had was sort of taking advantage of that, like Watts gas solution that shuts off gas if the T&P were to blow. And if we had like an electromechanical version that could be listed, that might be another way to eliminate the T&P and free it up for condensate management.
Great. I think that's resonating with some of the thoughts that some of our installers were talking about, John. If you wouldn't mind either email me or putting your email in the chat, we can connect and make sure we're all connected on this issue.
Cool, will do.
Great. Doug, I see your comment. Do you want to come on mic and say that?
Yeah, it's not a it's not a true statement, but installers have said they can't replace anode rods. So that's from the list of like the manufacturer's locally approved installers, like you get it from the manufacturer website, and then they say something like, yeah, we can install it, and you follow up years later, it's like, no, they can't be serviced. So I guess the suggestion would be manufacturers that maintain these lists should also make sure the installers are trained in service afterwards, because yes, of course you can replace the anode rod in these things.
Yeah. Yep. Want to make sure that that information is out there. Yeah. Thanks, Doug, for calling that out. Okay. Fantastic. Well, please keep the conversation going in the chat. I want to turn it over to, last but certainly not least, our utility working group in Vidisha. I will get the poll going right for this one and the equity one as you lead us in the conversation with Morgan.
Sure, Joe, thank you. Yes, we do sometimes go through some technical glitches, so things happen. We probably put the poll in a different chat, but yes, stay tuned for the poll question. I'll just wrap up the train of updates with the utility working group. This is our newest addition to the AWHI working group. Joe, could you please move forward to the next slide? Thank you. I forgot to update this slide today morning. So as of now, we have like 30 active members. This was a vision that Joe had last year. We really wanted a separate platform for utilities so that they could come and talk about their heat pump water heater programs, if there are any challenges, how they would like to move forward, and if there is something as AWHI we could assist them with. This program, this platform is a close-knit group, so it's only for utilities. And I'm so glad to say that we kickstarted this in April. We had a really interactive session with residential working group, like programs like midstream and retail heat pump water heater programs that National Grid gave an overview of. And then there was a new install program for installers at Lee Plata Electric Association. We decided to have these meetings focus on both residential and commercial programs. So on alternate months, we focus on like different sectors. So for the next month in May, we focused on the commercial side. And this was a jam-packed session because we had really lined up presentations on advanced water heating specifications, small commercial study, and the commercial heat pump program in Jacksonville, Florida. What were the challenges? How to really approach consumers? And one of my ambitious deliverable from this group is a utility tracker. This is like more granular, trying to understand different kinds of programs, upstream, midstream, downstream. Is it still active? Is it a pilot phase? Did it get discontinued? If so, what was the reason? Like, was there like a hesitation from the consumer side or from the contractor side? Was it like due to stocking of equipments? What could be the solution? And if there is a rebate, what is the eligibility criteria for those rebates? Like you have multifamily buildings, you have low income or like vulnerable communities. You have like some incentives could be stacked. Some incentives are only for like electric to heat pump water heaters. Some incentives, irrespective of like what the fuel switching is, they will give you a heat pump water heater rebate. And there are different ways like things work in different states. For example, in one state, it could be like a $500 rebate. In one state, it could be like a $1,500 rebate. There are installation prices that are like associated with it, so that might not really offset the initial cost. So how would like a consumer make these choices, and how utilities could actually intervene or make a crucial step in this advocacy for heat pump water heaters? These are some of the fun conversations that I've had with the utilities that I've reached out to, and I still continue doing my outreach. So if you're a utility and I've not reached out to you, it's really sad. So please let me know so that I can spam your inbox with a meeting request. And if you're not a utility, but if you still have some feedback or a suggestion, or if you think there are areas that a utility could look into or something helpful for the utilities, you could always let me know. You can drop me an email. And yes, I have one more thing to talk about. I had a really interesting conversation yesterday with another utility in Vermont, and I was talking to Morgan Hood from Vermont Gas, and I can't help but like observe these three things that were pretty common between me and Morgan. We both smile a lot, so we were smiling throughout the meeting. We both love sunshine and not a big fan of snowfall. And third, most importantly, we both believe that heat pump water heaters could be a very ideal solution from the utility perspective for energy savings and carbon savings. And there is no one solution fits all. So you have to look into heat pump water heaters from like different angles and different types and technology of heat pump water heaters. So on that note, I'm going to invite Morgan Hood to share her perspective on heat pump water heaters. Over to you, Morgan.
Thank you. That was a really nice introduction. I'll keep this short and sweet because I know we're at our end, and my story is a little quirky, so it might not be replicable for all, but we might as well end with a little bit of novelty. So I worked for the only gas utility in Vermont, small gas utility, maybe 60,000 customers total. And we have no plans for any natural gas infrastructure expansion again. We know that, and we've made sort of a public commitment that we're not going to expand our pipeline in any significant manner moving into the future. So we know as a utility that our profits are going to, and they're going to dwindle over time as more and more people move to electrify. Something that very much motivates my work is, we're still going to have to maintain this really costly infrastructure, regardless of how many people move off of it for a long time. And the cost to maintain that infrastructure is going to get more, well, it's going to remain as expensive as it ever was, with far fewer people paying in to support the system. The people who are left paying in to support the system are most likely going to be the folks who couldn't afford to electrify. So in my work, I look at that sort of curve, you know, the revenue the gas utility is anticipating it will lose over the coming years, and what sort of profit stream we can make up, what new programs and services we can offer to fill that gap, with two goals in mind. One being, we want to be a business long into the future. If it's not providing natural gas anymore, we want to provide thermal energy services more broadly. And you know, utilize the expertise we've developed in our utilities history and just sort of reapply it in new ways. And then also, if people are going to be spending more, paying more to stay on our infrastructure, as others move to electrify, how do we make that transition as painless for those people as possible? So this is the weird novel bit. What our regulators in Vermont have allowed us to do is sort of run a profitable business where we install and service, sell, and lease heat pumps. The first heat pump we offered was a heat pump water heater. And the profits that we earn off of this other service that we deliver kind of go into that shared bucket and help to keep our natural gas costs stable. So we earn some money over here, so we don't have to raise rates over there as fewer people rely on our system. To be totally transparent, we're not seeing a lot of people moving off of our system yet, but we anticipate it's only a matter of time. So we're allowed to do this because, well, our regulators gave us approval, and it's pretty quirky. And one of the reasons that they gave us approval is because we started installing heat pumps, selling them, leasing them, offering sales. I mean, we started installing equipment, not heat pumps specifically, in the 60s when our company began. And when a lot of gas utilities got rid of that service technician component, installers and servicers in-house, we kept them and we're allowed to. So we've been installing equipment, natural gas equipment, this whole time, but we started to go into customers' homes, and you know, they would call us because their hot water heater failed. And we would get there and give them the bad news, and they would ask us about heat pump water heaters. There are a lot of state incentives, so there's some marketing out there bringing them to their attention, and we wanted to be able to offer them that alternative and earn a profit off of the sale, lease, and servicing of that equipment. So to stay their provider of choice, even as they moved away from natural gas. So very untraditional model. Because we're a small state, we're able to work in a really pleasant collaborative manner with our other state efficiency programs who offer the rebates for electrical efficiency and fossil fuel displacement. So we partner with Efficiency Vermont, who provides incentives for heat pump water heaters, and we partner with Burlington Electric Department, who operates their own efficiency utility up here. And what we're able to do is we deduct the rebate for a heat pump water heater, in this case, off of that initial sale or lease cost to the customer. The customer never has to submit any paperwork or anything. We pass their information along to the rebate provider, the efficiency programs, and the rebate provider then reimburses us. So we're out the money for maybe a couple of months, but we're reimbursed, and we make it really easy for the customer. One of the things I like best about our program is we're able to lease this equipment to customers. We have to keep our rates, you know, fair. Because we're a regulated utility, our regulators want to make sure we're not coming in and undercutting other HBAC providers. We're not overcharging, you know, because we're able to make a profit on brand name recognition, for example. We have to kind of come in the middle. Customers get a fair price. We're able to offer them on-bill leasing for heat pump water heaters. So I just think of the customer whose hot water heater fails, they need a fix right away. The gas utility's got to respond to phone calls 24/7. You know, we're out there the next day. We're able to offer them a heat pump water heater if that's what makes sense for them, given their budget and their decarbonization goals. And we're able to put that lease payment right on their bills, because they might not be sitting on, you know, $1,000 or whatever it might be that day. And we're able to take the rebate right off the top so they never have to be out that money and waiting to be reimbursed either. So we're trying to make it really easy and straightforward for customers to adopt electric equipment. And we're trying to position ourselves as sort of a utility of the future where we provide thermal energy services, and our growth, the way we see it today, is not going to be in fossil fuels. It's going to be in decarbonization services. So this is one of the many steps we're taking to grow that portfolio of services now. And our heat pump water heater program has been up and running for about 3.5 years at this point, with some solid success. And that's all I've got for you today. But please feel free to reach out with questions, or if you want to have follow-up conversations, I'm definitely happy to make myself available to anybody who's interested.
Morgan, we're just about at time, and Vidisha, but I just wanted, do you have any updates on the heat pump water heater program that you want to share? And thanks for that great overview. Any quick updates? Nothing.
From me or from Vidisha?
No, sorry, from you, Morgan, on the program, on VGS's program.
No, I mean, it's been successful. So the only update I have to provide is we were very fortunate this past year to have received additional money. I believe it was through maybe the IRA that funded what we called a switch and save program, where we were able to offer heat pump water heaters to income eligible customers for free. That funding has run out. I don't think that funding is going to come back. So our numbers, honestly, this year were through the roof. Everybody who had a water heater that failed and they needed a new heat pump water heater, or they needed a new water heater, got a heat pump water heater through us if their home would accommodate it. So that was wonderful. But the political climate we're in now is significantly different. So I don't anticipate that sort of influx of funding to come our way again. But we made an impact while the sun was shining.
That's great. Great. Well, thank you. Vidisha, thanks for leading us through our utility group. Thanks for everyone for sticking with us for this long. And Morgan, huge thanks for being on. Thanks for all of our presenters. Yeah, we promised you a whirlwind tour through the heat pump water heating world, and I feel like we did it. We delivered. All right. We'll send out the recording and the slides actually later today. And thank you all. Keep the conversation going in the chat and drop us an email with any thoughts. Really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day.